Hello, everyone. Today is August 23rd, 2023. This is the Kubernetes Data Protection Working Group meeting. So today, I think we'll get an update on CPT, but if there are other issues anyone want to bring up, you can add to the agenda. So Ivan Carr, you guys want to talk about this? Or should I make you a presenter as well? Do you want to share anything?
I have nothing to share, but we can tell you where we are.
Okay.
We can add the link, Carl. We can add the link to the.
Yeah, we can paste the link to them. Yeah.
So this is the right link, right? This one is not changed.
There's another PR for the RPC spec.
The CSI, right? So now is this one up to date? I think it's it shows so many of this little commits.
Yeah,
40 commit. Okay. All right. Okay, so this is the one, right? But is this cap up to date?
Yes, it's been up to date for a while. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I need to update some of the PRR stuff and the test cases.
Oh yeah, so I think we should update that. You need to update the milestone, right? Because we're targeting targeting alpha in 1.29. So we should need to selection item update cap accordingly.
Yeah, Xing, is there any, I guess, like guidelines on like that test cases section? I looked through some of the previous caps.
Right. Now, normally that's what we do. Normally, just you take a look of other examples. Then people can comment. But I think in our case, because the tests will be auto tree, then you can take a look of the test. There's some tests added for multimodal conversion. Those are in the external repo. So, but that's only when you add implementation time. I think right now we're just looking at what tests to add. So yeah, you can just look at other examples and think about what to add. Yeah.
Okay, I think I'll provide just enough information without without turning it into a test case documentation or something.
And also, okay, so did you close the old one? You have another PR. Did you close that one?
Yeah. Okay. We closed the old cap and the old CSI spec PR.
Okay, so then I don't know if I think this, how does this one work? This one does not work as this way. I don't think I can assign. Yeah, I don't think I can assign here. Maybe just CC Ben.
I've been reviewing it. I just haven't made my comments, but I've been reading it.
Okay. Yeah, as I don't know how to assign here, but yeah. So here, this is like another service, right? Okay. Okay, yeah, so yeah, Ben, if you can start review this, it'll be great. So basically,
I marked myself as a reviewer in GitHub, so that should be visible. Yeah, we would like a second reviewer.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I had a question there, Ben, about I just copied the capabilities things blindly. I don't know whether it's applicable here or not, but I left a comment on that section.
What do you mean? Just copy
capabilities
blindly? This is a plugin. Yeah. So if this is a separate service, then do you need to have a?
Yeah. So if you go to conversations, because it doesn't seem to show up here. Go to conversation and see. I think I left a issue there, and there was
here.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing about which I wanted to know about this was that. Number one, on the Kubernetes side, right, we're saying it's advertised differently, which is fine. But if this capabilities flag exists, then, and let's say we have a separate pod running the snapshot metadata service. That's the second paragraph here. I was thinking then we probably have to notify the SP that they'd have to have an identity service sitting alongside this in order to answer the metadata question, right? The capabilities question. So
every CSI service needs an identity service. I mean, every daemon that's providing a service needs to run the identity service. That's
okay. That's
I think well understood. But I was going to ask the question, why a separate service at all? Like,
that's like to me, that's totally vendor specific. I don't require it, and the spec doesn't require it.
Okay, so we could just have these be new RPCs on the controller service.
Oh yeah, I mean clearly.
Yeah.
But you know, the difference between the controller service and this is that this is dealing with metadata, which is proportional, which can be quite large. I guess it's not as much as data, but but it's beyond control, right? So
is the thinking that
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm losing my audio.
But this is still just metadata. It's a control path, right? This is not going to be used for real data, isn't it? Because if that is totally different.
It's between
the question is, might you want to split it into a separate pod and run it on a different node? If you might want to split it, for scaling reasons or performance reasons or whatever, then having it as a separate service makes that a lot easier.
Yes. And I mean, you could even have multiple replicas of it because it's stateless, right? So it's up to the vendor how they want to do it, and that's it. The spec doesn't require us to say anything further.
I think part of it is, as Carl said, like there's still like, I guess, questions on our side that we don't know what the answers to. Like, if you folks can help guide us and provide the feedback, that would be appreciated, because after all, this is the first time the three of us like tackle like the CSI spec at this level. I guess my follow-up question for this would be, which we can discuss in the PR, would be like if we have a separate service. I mean, presumably like the volume snapshot service, which is under the controller service, needs to first of all be enabled or supported, right? Like does that need to be coordinated? Like, because like the snapshot metadata service is pointless if the volume snapshot service or whatever it is not supported, right?
Right.
So volume snapshot needs
We
to be
also have
supported
to,
first.
it's actually we have to check for both capabilities. If you don't have the create snapshot capability, then this one does not make sense at all, right?
But I think we can handle that with documentation, right? We can just say, service SPs that implement this service must implement this capability. And then if someone doesn't do it, you get undefined behavior and whatever, right?
Yeah. Besides, you can't even use this API if you don't have a Kubernetes snapshot object, because that's how you find the provisioner.
Yeah, so I think like things like that, if we can call it out in the PR, like what can be documented or what must be. Hang on a sec. What must be documented? What must be inside the spec? I think it will be useful to communicate to a wider audience.
So do we want to use this meeting to discuss this part of the spec? Do you have other agenda items today, Xing? Or
no, I don't think anyone has added any other issues.
I want to add to that. I mean, can we talk about getting vendor participation? We did not address that part very much.
Okay, vendor participation, all right. So I know that Dell probably want to participate, right? Ivan?
Yeah, if we can get it to the alpha state, then we definitely have strong interest to implement this, both on the CSI driver side.
I was going to ask you, as a CSI driver or as a backup implementation?
It was eventually it will be both. Like now, whoever get there for the CSI driver and the backup software side. Now I don't like it doesn't. I don't know what the ordering of who is gonna go first, or in which priority. But yeah, definitely on both sides, backup server and the CSI driver, we have strong interest in it.
We'd probably try and do it together and integrate, I would think, but we have to find the resources on the CSI side.
So are you planning to do this after as part of the alpha, or I mean, or is it like after the alpha is already in place? I guess how soon you are planning to implement this? Or you're not sure yet?
Not sure yet. Yeah,
not
like,
sure.
Okay.
But it would be it would be early. I don't know. It really depends what comes out of the CSI spec review. But so far, like, looks like there are no surprises yet. So
yeah, we are also interested, but also resource-wise, not sure.
Is there any interest from anyone else in implementing this? Because as I mentioned, I think during the CSI meeting, the real proof point for this spec will be, I think, getting a couple different storage implementations and backup implementations that are all interoperable.
Yeah.
I recall previous meetings, AWS expressed interest, but I do not represent them. I just am recalling from previous meetings.
Yeah.
I feel they're just looking, they're not sure. That's my understanding, but we can definitely check with them.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to.
Yeah.
We don't need to gate anything on the participation, but like, in terms of getting to the alpha, but once it's in alpha, yeah, I think we should run around and try to get some people excited about implementing it to move it to beta.
Right. Yeah. If there's no implementation, we can never move it further. Yeah.
So what are the steps left to get it to alpha? I mean, who's going to code the sidecar, things like that? Where would it go? Besides just PRs. Yeah.
The CSI spec is sort of step one, I think. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't start writing the sidecar before it's done. It just means, we have to get the CSI spec change merged before we can have an official sidecar.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the first thing is we want to make sure we don't miss the deadline for 1.29. Although right now I do not know if that is published yet. You check. So that means we need to get the cap merged. Right, so cap has a deadline. So we need to get merged by enhanced freeze. CSI spec merged. I don't know by when. So we need to, I'm not sure what is the date that we need to get this one in, because we probably need to check with the modify checklist. Modify. So let's see. When do they need the release to be cut?
And
Xing, what is this item about? Check with modify volume?
Oh, I will check. I will check this. I will check with.
Oh, okay.
Xing, with
Basically, we need the coordination because they modify volume. They already have the CSI spec merged, so they actually need to cut a release. But Sad was saying, let's just wait and so that we can cut one release for both CPT and modify volume. Because they are also targeting alpha in 1.29, right? So just want to check and see what is the date that they definitely need to have that release cut, because they think they need to, yeah, I think they need to make some entry changes. So they actually need to make a change in KK to update the CSI version. Carl, you have some questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, we ran into a problem with Proto-C in the CSI spec, in the CSI repo. And I haven't figured out it was a recent change. So this PR, if you notice, is I had to merge it on the release. I rebased it on the release before master. So to make this work. Okay, so just keep that in mind, reviewer Ben.
So you are okay.
You created an issue or anything of that for that thing?
Okay, I'm sorry. So did you figure out how to do a make? Because I do see that you actually one file is missing, right? There should be it is here. Right?
Yeah, but see the go back
okay,
to
it is there. Okay.
Go back to the commits, right? You'll see there's I had to revert. I haven't found out
That's three files,
that there was a Proto-C change, which very recently. So it was, I think, two commits from master, but pretty much the same day, the day before. So I rebased it down.
Okay, basically you rebased, after that it works.
Yes. So the point is master will not work. So keep that in mind.
Sorry, why master? So okay, I'm not getting why master does not work.
So Xing, you go. Sorry,
it looks like Jordan bumped something 2 commits ago.
In this repo, in CSI spec repo?
In spec
CSI spec repo.
Okay.
So I think that broke the make, and then we didn't spend too much time looking into how the make file work. But if you clone this repo, you run make it the first time it'll be okay.
I see.
But then you do make clean, and then make again. The third time it will fail, and we didn't try to debug it because.
Yeah. I mean, that's because, if you just do make, it's using the built-in that file, csi.proto.whatever, right? And if you don't make clean, then you could build a new one, and that's when you run into the problem. Because I had to make a new one because it's extending the interface.
Okay. Yeah, maybe can you describe that? How do you get the make to work in your PR? Just to add a description there.
No, they rebased on a version that didn't have this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to reproduce the problem right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because if that's a problem, we should fix that.
Oh, look at that. Oh.
What? Sorry, what?
No, I did a make and then a make clean and then another make, and now it's super funky. So I see the problem.
Okay.
Oh, so this one we also have the auto bump now. Okay. Should we merge this? Guess we should. Oh, there is a conflict, so maybe we don't need this anymore. Okay, this one has a conflict now. So. Okay, so all right, so that looks fine.
All right, yeah, we'll have to debug the issue with the Proto-C. I had if we don't have other things to discuss, I wanted to talk about the CSI spec itself, in particular the let me find the line.
Okay, you want to share? And I'll stop sharing if you want to share anything.
I don't know if I need to. I can try to. Oh no, I'm on my phone. I'm not.
Okay,
so I can't share.
Oh, that's okay.
The security token field. So we discussed this before, and I think my suggestion was to get rid of it. But I can't remember the details of what this is supposed to be used for. So can you remind me what the vision for security token is?
In this here. Okay, let's see. Where's this reader?
Yeah, this is the bearer token, which we get out of the token.
The security token.
Yeah, the token access API.
Token access API. Okay, but this is
Oh,
secret data, right?
is this
It's part of the Kubernetes, at least for the Kubernetes perspective, right? This the token request API. Sorry, this is the bearer token which Kubernetes gives us, and we provide this. We have to provide this token to the sidecar, or basically to the service, so that it can authenticate the caller.
Right, but the theory is that the sidecar does the authentication.
No, that's
and
true.
Then
the sidecar is using the same API.
Yeah, as I recall, like the conversation around this was, are we gonna use the same spec for both the communication between the backup software and the sidecar, between the sidecar and the CSI plugin container? So they're two gRPC like specs, right?
right,
External
okay,
and internal.
because this is not over a Unix socket. That's the concern.
Right, and that's why I kind of weasel worded it a little bit, Ben. I said the field should be left empty if communication with the plugin does not require authentication.
Yeah. Okay. So this is not authentication with something outside the system. This is the built-in authentication mechanism.
Correct.
Yeah. I guess I have two comments. One is we for all the other CSI APIs, stuff that is technically secret is marked secret as such in the spec, and we typically have these opaque maps, string maps, where secret information is passed in that will include basically any vendor specific secrets that are necessary.
Right.
And then it's up to the sidecar to figure out how to marshal those and pass them safely and reliably. And we probably need that here, because every place we've ever left it out, we've gotten in trouble and had to add it later. So we'll probably need to have secret fields. But then this token field, it sounds like it's also a secret, but it's a special one in the sense that it's defined by the
yeah, I don't know whether
Kubernetes kept.
This is a authentication bearer token.
so maybe just don't call it secure, just like call it an auth token or something. If we need both, it will be very confusing.
Whatever works for you guys, we'll change the names.
Well, yeah. But the problem is unless the CSI spec explains how it gets generated or where it comes from, like we can't document what it means, and so we don't want to have something in the CSI spec that doesn't have a.
Yeah,
it's not also defined.
Kind of Kubernetes specific, I think, if we put it here.
So that was an issue which I raised on the KEP side, right? And that we are using the same API, and we'd have to pass this through the API. I mean, besides the security token, you can make the same argument, Ben, for the namespace field, right? So neither of these are applicable to the Unix socket-based communication with the, right?
Yeah. The namespace field is going to be problematic.
So I try to put it such that these fields should be left empty if not applicable, but I did not try to define what made it applicable, because that comes from the implementation side.
So in your example architecture that you presented, in terms of all the different components talking to each other, what would get sent in this field, and how would it be used in sort of your example?
So the sidecar would implement the same service, but the sidecar expects its client to be a Kubernetes client. So it would get an authentication bearer token from the client, and it would get the namespace of the snapshot object. The IDs in the Kubernetes client are going to be snapshot IDs of Kubernetes objects. The name of so basically it's namespace name, right, of the Kubernetes object.
But the snapshot content is not namespace, right? It's
they're not sending the content to us. They're sending the name of the snapshot.
Okay, but from that you can look up the snapshot content, which has the actual handle, right? The snapshot ID.
Correct. That's the goal.
And that's the thing that the SP will know about. The SP will never know about a namespace.
So the sidecar turns around and talks to the SP's implementation, right? It has translated all the nouns to the IDs of the SP.
Yeah. Okay. But what's the security token doing there?
There it's empty.
It's empty when the sidecar is talking to the. Okay, well, then why does the sidecar need to implement this API as well? Shouldn't it implement a different API?
Well, how many APIs do we want?
I don't know about it. I'm thinking if you're an SP author, you should have to implement exactly one thing, which is the actual guts of these calls, and you shouldn't care about the security token. You shouldn't care about the namespace. You just need a snapshot ID and
so are you
like a base snapshot ID?
Then are you proposing that the Kubernetes implementation also add a gRPC? Because we'd have to then wrap this gRPC or replace or provide our own gRPC for Kubernetes, which we don't have such a precedent at this point.
Okay, so what you're saying is the other gRPC that will be used between the sidecar and the backup software, the CSI plugin never knows about.
Correct.
And it just needs to live somewhere.
Yes.
And your idea was why not have one API and reuse it twice?
Correct.
So okay. Yeah, I don't like the idea of reusing it in the sense that it's going to introduce things that make no sense here. But then there's a legitimate problem of where do you define that other gRPC?
Correct.
That's tricky.
Yep.
My instinct is to say, well, it doesn't belong in CSI, but I can't tell you where it does belong. And I don't want to just throw that as a problem that you have to solve.
Yeah, there's no precedent over here for this. So
okay. Yeah, that's something we need to, I think, discuss as a larger group with the SIG storage and see what has been done in the past, what could be done.
Mm-hmm.
Creating a whole new project doesn't make sense. I wonder if we can just define it, if it's going to be a Kubernetes specific thing. Well, would it be? I mean, has the interface between the sidecar and the backup software been written in such a way that it could work outside Kubernetes, or is it fundamentally Kubernetes specific?
I mean, it's no, we haven't done the prototype that way. We assume it's a Kubernetes client because it's a Kubernetes sidecar. So, but the backup software doesn't have to run in the cluster if that's what you're asking, because essentially the backup software has to give us a authentication bearer token that can be resolved through the token review API. That's it.
Yeah.
So sorry, Carl, but at the gRPC level, right? The client and the server, that should be like generic. But yes, after the gRPC call, right? Before the client or after the client or after the server, there is all this like token API request review thing calls that we need to make to Kubernetes. But the gRPC client and server themselves, I think they should be generic. So for example, they don't depend on at service account token, they don't depend on kubeconfig like a typical controller or a typical client Go application would, right? But it's just, we have to make call to the token review and token request API, but that is before and after the outside of the gRPC libraries themselves, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think that in this case, the sidecar is basically acting like a proxy with the HTTP socket on the front end and a Unix socket on the back end. And it wants to basically proxy the request through, do the authentication, but then the actual data or metadata in this case is going to be a pass through from whatever the SP provides, right?
Yeah.
Then is there an equivalent of HTTP headers for gRPC? I mean, that's the issue, right?
Oh, I'm not a gRPC expert.
That's true. Wait, in an HTTP API, you don't see these type of things. At least you wouldn't see security token because it's typically passed in the envelope, right? And
maybe that's what we can do here. We need to look at, what does it look like to do gRPC over HTTPS? Can the authentication be done by the HTTPS layer so that the gRPC doesn't see it?
So I cannot answer that. I do not know enough. So if you guys know who knows, that would be great.
And and for what it's worth, right? Like beside the security token and the namespace properties here, the rest of the structure of the message, request, response, they are near identical. That's why if we have it in two places, now it means like there are two pieces of code or two libraries or whatever or spec that we have to manage.
Yeah.
So everything else is just identical other than security token and namespace. And hence there's also nothing specific about the gRPC spec that's Kubernetes specific.
Yeah, and by the way, namespace, we could obfuscate namespace on the Kubernetes side by saying, let's say we always send namespace /name, that's easy. But so we could get rid of namespace if we really had to.
No, I mean, I think you want to think carefully about what your front end API looks like for backup software.
And that's why I propose this,
And like that should make sense independent of what you're doing on the back end. I want to review this CSI spec change from the perspective of like just the back end, but what a storage provider would have to implement. Sure. And so I want to make sure that it makes perfect sense to any storage vendor that wants to implement this API should be able to read it, and every single field should make sense to them. And then if it's possible for the two APIs to be literally the same, like that's great, but I don't think that needs to be like a requirement. I think it's a nice to have the APIs to be the same. And if the front end API needs to look different than the back end API and there needs to be a translation in the middle, I think we just have to deal with that.
Okay, then we'll have kind of parking space for where we put the gRPC for Kubernetes.
But it could just be in the sidecar itself. I'm thinking.
If I have a backup vendor, and which repo do I get it from? I have to get it from the Kubernetes repo. And Ben, what about vendors who may want to fold the sidecar data directly into their code, just for argument's sake? There's nothing stopping them from doing that, right?
Anyone who just like pulls the sidecar directly into their code has a big maintenance nightmare on their hands.
But it's there, right? The spec doesn't care.
Yeah, I guess the thing that's new here is that there is a front end API, and nothing else we've done before has ever had a front end API. But so, that front end API is not CSI; it's something else.
So Ben, if I follow your point, I just want to confirm my understanding. So you're saying like it'd be ideal if like those two set of APIs are actually identical. So none of the if you are between backup software and sidecar, you have these fields that you have to take care of. If you're on the other side of the equation, you have another set of fields that you have to take care of. So if I understand it correctly, basically you're saying like the security token and the namespace, if we can get rid of them and then somehow put them into the HTTP header, then the specs would literally be identical, right? Between
the namespace, I'm sure you can get rid of, because all you have to do is hunt to the backup software to say, look, you need to give me the actual snapshot ID, which means the backup software has to dereference the snapshot namespace, find the snapshot content, pull out the snapshot handle, and give that to you. That's very easy to deal with. If there's a reason not to do that,
we cannot do that, because then we cannot validate that that the backup application has access to snapshots in that namespace. That become a security hole.
Wait,
the sidecar has to address that.
But how would you deny access to some snapshots and some namespaces and not others?
So that's in the CAP side. We in the risks and mitigation section, we address all that. essentially what we do is we look up with this token, right? We do a subject access review for that token and check whether that principal has access to volume snapshots in the namespace given.
Oh, okay. But the oh boy, this is hard to think about because I'm thinking if they have access to the snapshot ID at all, that's evidence that like something let them go read the snapshot and the snapshot content. And but it's the way that you would grant that access in Kubernetes is an all or nothing thing. Either you grant access to all of the snapshots and all the namespaces or none of them. You can't do it on a per namespace basis.
Many snapshot objects are namespaced, so it can be done.
Right, but if the assumption is that they're going to supply you with the snapshot ID, which is in the snapshot content object, they need to be able to read snapshot content objects.
Yeah. That's
an all or nothing grant.
Yeah, the sidecar can read snapshot content objects. It has permission because it runs under CSI driver's authority, right?
But can the backup software read snapshot content objects?
We don't trust it, right? So what we do is we say, give us the snapshot, the name of the snapshot in the namespace, and assuming the backup software was the one that created the snapshot in the first place is no biggie, but we have to check through making a SAR call over there. Otherwise, we have this risk that they can just send us arbitrary data, and by just having the ability to use our API, they can then get metadata from arbitrary snapshots just by spoofing the snapshot ID.
Well, they would need to be able to get a valid snapshot ID, which is not a trivial thing.
They can guess.
But what you're saying is anyone who can guess snapshot IDs can now use the API, and you don't like that.
No, it's one of the identified security risks out there.
Okay.
So I mean, so in a way though, like regardless, right? Like if there's a way to pass it, we're saying like if we can pass it into the gRPC or the HTTP header, then gRPC spec wise, then it would be the same.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can get rid of security token in namespace and somehow just jam and port it into the headers of the request.
Is there an envelope concept in gRPC, right?
There probably is. I guess my ask would be go find that out and let us know, because that will help inform what we should do about that layer of the API. But I would say if there isn't, then my recommendation is going to be like, let's just define a different API for that layer that includes exactly what we need at that layer, and then not pollute the CSI level gRPC with details that are relevant.
Well, I
want to try one more time on the authentication scheme. So I understand you got to pass in a token, and we're worried about people who can guess snapshot IDs.
Correct.
Is there a way to do the access review that is like an all or nothing, like this token should be able to use this API in a way that isn't tied to any particular namespace or snapshot? Like, can we just have a giant Boolean flag that says this software is trusted to call the...
No, in fact, I think in a previous
CBT
meeting,
API?
was it you and Dave who had this discussion about protecting just specific namespaces in specific ways? You can't do it if you just do a gigantic all or nothing. I mean, we would then basically put too much, we'd be forcing an implementer to give too much permission, too much overly scoped permissions in Kubernetes. Put it that way.
Well, what if the permission that was checked was just the read access on the specific snapshot content that was being referred to in the snapshot ID?
The ability to
but you don't have the name. You don't have the name of that. You just have the snapshot ID itself, not the name of the content object.
Yeah, that snapshot ID cannot work because the verb, the noun on the Kubernetes side is the snapshot object. So we have to keep that in mind. Anyway, let's look into this envelope business because that's something.
I'm not willing to concede that we can't just require backup softwares to do this lookup of the snapshot content and get the snapshot ID themselves. And then perform the access check some other way.
Okay, fair enough.
To get rid of people that are just guessing snapshot IDs.
Well, fair enough that, so take a look. Ben, I don't know if you can read that then without just purely in this spec. I think the KEP has to be looked at too, because in the risks and mitigation section of the KEP where we raised this issue, right? It is a serious issue. And I think that was part of the reason, I think in the earlier iterations, Ivan, do you remember we introduced the webhook and other stuff, all because of this?
But I still suspect that there's a way to, you do need an authentication mechanism so that complete random clients can't just get in and start calling the API. But it seems to me that in most deployments, when you install backup software, you're going to want to deploy it for the whole cluster. And having a giant Boolean that basically granted access or not would be sufficient for security purposes. As far as the implementation of that, I don't know. But just from a usability perspective, being able to say like, yeah, the service account can call the CBT API on all snapshots seems like enough control to satisfy security needs.
I don't know. I think last meeting, Ben, I think you and Dave got into it about protecting namespaces.
Well, I think that someone was arguing for that it should be possible to like install a backup software like not at the infrastructure level, but like for an individual user's namespace.
Correct.
And I don't know if that's a realistic goal or not. My inclination is to say, this is the kind of software that you install for the whole cluster, and you don't do one namespace at a time. But I could be wrong about that.
I mean, we also talked about like how it might not be that difficult to do this incrementally, right? Like we do the namespace level, single namespace, unprivileged level protection in a later phase. Yeah.
Well, but the question is whether that the API between the sidecar and the backup software should talk about volume snapshots and namespaces, or whether it should talk about snapshot IDs. And my inclination is to say, like, why not just talk about snapshot IDs and have a security mechanism that makes that safe? And that's not the kind of thing you can change after you design it.
Yeah, I think the namespace is pretty weird because we don't have this for if you just create snapshot and any other operations, we don't pass in namespace, but this one has namespace.
Yeah.
Weird.
That's the thing that's really tripping me up is it's very, very weird to speak about namespace at this layer.
Yes.
Usually storage components in Kubernetes deal with the whole cluster.
Yeah, so
they're
I easily get rid of namespace because we can collapse namespace over snapshot ID in the Kubernetes side. That's easy. Security token, focus on that. How do we get rid of that?
Yeah, I mean, for that, I say let's try to see if the HTTP envelope gives us an authentication mechanism that we can just use. And then we'll have to add in a secure or a secrets field just because we always have a secrets field, but like that won't be used for the security token. That would be used for any other secrets that are necessary for the SP to do its job. The SP should not see the security token. Only the sidecar should.
Prasad, do you have any idea if the envelope can take something? I'm looking at dial context or something. They have options over there, but I don't know what options they could be. So. Connect params. Credentials bundle. Client connection with credentials.
I mean, we know HTTP has a whole raft of authentication mechanisms that are supported at the HTTP layer. The question is, does gRPC integrate with them or not?
No. Yeah. And is it through a clean API guaranteed to exist going forward?
I mean, I would be shocked if it didn't, but
yeah,
it should be confirmed.
Xing, do we know anybody who has the experience with gRPC who could answer that question for us?
I don't know who else
gRPC Slack channel. I don't know if there's one.
Or, I mean, is there a Kubernetes gRPC API equivalent effort going on?
Kubernetes doesn't really use gRPC anywhere. It's largely REST.
Right.
gRPC is a CSI specific thing.
Yeah.
That we picked up for CSI, but I don't know that Kubernetes people in general would know much about gRPC.
Yeah. So another way of thinking about this, Ben, is that what if in the future, and I'm not saying we're going to do it, what if in the future we had a parallel data retrieval API, right? It would have the same problems.
Data retrieval over HTTPS?
Over the gRPC.
But gRPC over HTTPS?
Yeah. Or through the SP, basically.
Well, I think we would argue against that for a variety of reasons, but assuming there was a good reason to do it, I mean, yeah, you would need authentication, and you would want that to be in the envelope, I think, so that the SP wouldn't have to be responsible for implementing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So this is kind of beyond my knowledge, the gRPC envelope.
Yeah, we don't have to resolve it in this meeting, but I wanted to raise the issue of that field because it didn't feel like it made sense at the SP layer. Now I understand why. So I'll make my comments on what we should do at the CSI layer, and then we'll try to help figure out what to do for this backup API layer, which has to live somewhere, and to see to the extent that we can just reuse this. I mean, I'm worried that if we officially say like we're just reusing the API, that it will tie our hands in a way that we don't like.
Yeah.
And we might wish that we had made it separate, even though that's more work. I'm not sure where we would host it, but you could start with, if for something alpha, you could just put it in the sidecar repo. So here's the gRPC definition for the front end API. And then later, if we want to move that to like a proper place, it's just a copy paste operation. I think that just to get started, that might be the simplest way, assuming it needs to look different in any way. If we can get to a place where it doesn't look different and it's literally the same for alpha, we'll probably reconsider that when we go to beta and realize we want to change it. I'm just speculating now that even if it ends up being the same in alpha, we'll probably want to change it in beta because we'll find things that we want to do differently. But I'm willing to wait till we get to beta to find that out. So okay. I think we used up most of the meeting discussing this subject, and I got my questions answered, so I'll provide feedback in the CSI spec repo. Is there anything else that we should discuss?
We should try and give feedback on the CAP too. Okay, there are 2 PRs out there, so.
Yeah, if you can help review the CAP.
I can try. I have a very full plate.
But it's just that related, right? How
the
CSS spec is used, that's described in the CAP. Yeah, but of course CSS spec first. I mean, if
the
time for CSS spec, we'll do that first.
The CSS spec is kind of derived from what the CAP is trying to do. So
it's just CAP has more details for the overall picture.
The big picture, yeah.
Good. Okay, so if there's nothing else, then I think that's it for today then. All right.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.